What is up, humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we've got another deck profile for you. This time, I'm coming back with ZEFRAs. I still believe ZEFRAs they're like always good. It just, I just want to update them format to format. But I don't know. I never liked pendulums for the longest time, and then I found this deck. I thought it was only just an engine as part of like combo variants, but it really is a really strong control deck in and of itself. If you play a pure version, this is more of like a budget build. There are like a couple cards that if I had access to them, they would really help this list in particular. I'll mention those as we go through things. And yeah, so before we get into it, I want to do two quick shout outs. First and foremost, if you like this mat, it's a phenomenal mat. You have Ecclesia staring down Stigmata, or not Stigmata, you have Golgolgonda here. And then on the other side, you have Ecclesia being backed up by the Stigmata Dragon. It's a beautiful two-sided mat. It's what I've been using as of late there, and I love the Dogmatic lore. If you do as well, check out the link in the description for my boy Charles from Team COG. This is his mat. And there'll be a code down there that can save you 10%, as well as I'll make a little bit of side cash. Charles makes his side cash, and you get to save $10. So why not? The other thing I want to shout out is Dilemma on YouTube. He is like the prime ZEFRA enthusiast on the internet. All right, if you want to know as much as you can about this deck, I'm going to give you a quick profile here, but he will give you the nitty gritty. He has so many videos on that stuff. So if you really want to go in depth, definitely check him out. And he is definitely an influence on me and helping me learn about this deck as well. So I just want to give him his due diligence there as well. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Without those nice cards, you definitely lose a little bit of consistency. The cards that I don't personally have access to at the moment, but we'll talk about those later on. So starting off with the ZEFRA package, you start out with the three most important monsters. You have 3 copies of ZEFRAth, 3 copies of ZEFRA New, and 3 copies of ZEFRAXI. You just want to see these. ZEFRAXI is definitely the worst one to see here. ZEFRAth is the best starter in your deck. It sends any ZEFRA card to the top of the extra deck. In scale, and then copies at scale. That's how you get access to ZEFRA New really easily, and then this is your searcher. Phenomenal. This card also makes ZEFRA's tuners, so it allows you to do like a cool little combo. I'll show it at the end on like how to search any monster in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I know that sounds busted, and it is, but yeah, this deck can do it with like a 3-card combo. All right, next up, you have our one-offs. Satellar Knight, ZEFRA Thubin, the Ritual Beast, ZEFRA Empilica, Shadal ZEFRA Naga, ZEFRAXITON, and 1 ZEFRA Wendy. The biggest things here that I think you want to note is you always want to open ZEFRAth with a low scale, because when you open him with a low scale, it means you can send ZEFRA New and then copy him to become a high scale. You always want to get ZEFRA New, and you always want this to be a high scale because it just works out that way. So we have like obviously the 3 ZEFRAXI. These are totally fine to be in scale. We do it all the time, as well as 3 more 1 scales here. And the other thing is, like, we have so many search cards that get us access to any ZEFRA monster we want, whether putting them in the extra deck or just searching them raw to hand, that there's really no point in playing any of the utility ones at more than a 1-of, really. So, like, before I was playing more than 1 ZEFRA Thubin, but I just end up coming up to the realization that Naga actually does have some nice applications. It bounces a scale back to hand. And so sometimes if you had an awkward scale where, like, maybe you didn't make ZEFRAth a scale of 7 by sending ZEFRA New because you just couldn't, you can then bounce the other scale back to hand, so you're not breaking up your scales. It comes up for sure. Wendy's reborning a ZEFRA monster from grave if you get solemned or hand ripped or anything. Thubin's popping face up cards. Fraxiton's popping face down cards. Wendy is adding a ZEFRA from extra deck back to your hand. They're all good in their own way. These are your high scales. You still need some high scales for awkward situations and also just the utility that they provide, but you always want to open a low scale with your ZEFRAth for sure. So that's why we play more of those than the high scales. Next up, the only other like real monster in the deck, Gizmet Kaku. This card just says if there's a monster in the extra monster zone, special summon it. Once per turn, it can like suck up a monster in the extra monster zone and equip it to itself. That's actually nice for like breaking through boards potentially. And then if it destroys a monster by battle, you can summon a monster that was equipped to it. It's a cool card. Usually you're just using it as a level 9 to make a rank 9. We'll get to that later. For the hand traps, 3 copies of Gamma and Driver. This is an absolute must-have. Do not play this deck without this. This card is insane. It is so live all the time. 3 Ash, it's Ash. 2 Bell, it's Bell. And 1 Crow, it's Crow. It's good in the format, actually. There's a lot of stuff that Crow hits pretty well. Okay, so long story short here, Gamma's just insane because it's like a defensive card, like going second to help keep your opponent from going wombo combo, or it's just like a protective card as you're doing your combo that's also going to land a driver on your side of the field. Absolutely insane. Of course, the driver, the only brick in your deck, really. Ash Blossom, Bell, and Crow, these are just meta-dependent hand traps. I will say this. For the cards I am missing, these are definitely cards I would cut down on. You definitely have hands where you open too many hand traps, for sure. And you definitely don't want to open too many. You always want to see at least 2 ZEFRA cards, like including a ZEFRA. That's kind of what you want, and these kind of hurt your ability to do that. So I still like having the 1 of DD Crow because, like I said, this deck does have combos that search any monster in the game. So sometimes you just like can add this versus strikers and just like hit the Ray Engrave or hit the Engage Engrave. You know what I mean? So if you like know the matchup, having something like DD Crow in Bell, so you can like negate a Tri-Brigade Revolt, like the best card in the deck, that's still really nice. So I think if I could drop these, I think I'd try and just drop one of each of these and maybe play like 2 Ash, 1 Bell, 1 Crow. So that way, because Tri-Brigades are really good, we can search this. Because stuff like Striker and Drytron, we can search this. But also Ash just generically good. And then I'd still be able to have 2 more slots to put into other stuff. At least this. But you got to keep the Gamma. But yeah. Next up, spells. Okay, 3 copies of ZEFRA Oracle. This card on activation adds any ZEFRA monster, as well as, there's a couple different effects here, but you're really never using anything except for, I guess technically you could use, hold on, let me think. Nope. Sort of. Okay. So really, it has multiple effects depending on if you use a ZEFRA monster as material for a type of summon. So if you use them for a Synchro summon, this is the big one, you can choose any monster in your entire main deck and just place it on top of the deck. The idea there is that you Synchro into something like Croco Dragon or Stardust Charge Warrior, which draw a card on summon. You stack first, then you draw the cards you stack, essentially searching any monster in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Very good. Also, if you use a ZEFRA for an Exceed summon, you can draw 1 card, then discard 1 card. That's also decent, you know, somewhat fix your hand if you have something that's not great in your hand, like a driver or whatever. So yeah, really, really insane card. 4 copies of that for consistency. Triple Providence. This card's insane. This card's not even Rhoda because it searches spells and traps as well. So you can just search your like counter trap or traps or your floodgate. And then engrave, except the turn it was sent there, it is Balinx. If any ZEFRA card or cards would be destroyed, banish this card instead. This allows you to beat stuff like Harpy's Feather Duster. This allows you to beat stuff like Lightning Storm. Anything that's like removal, mass or not, this card is a pain for certain decks to deal with if their main source of removal is destruction. 1 ZEFRA path. Outside of that, this Floodgate's insane. It does have a couple of like activation requirements, but mainly the whole point of this is when it's face up, neither player can special summon except from hand and extra deck. So no graveyard summons, no deck straight from main deck summons, no banish summons, and you cannot summon tokens whatsoever. You also can't summon from the spell and trap zone, so Eldritch monsters can't summon. Shade Brigandine can't summon in those weird decks. Very, very like, oh man, oppressive floodgate that just like so many decks just, even if you don't even think like the deck loses to it, it means their deck is probably half as strong. Like combo decks, what combo deck other than maybe Virtual World, but even then they use Nyan, so it hurts them somewhat. What deck other than like Virtual World, combo deck, like doesn't summon from deck or grave? Or summon tokens, right? They either go like into an Auroradon play or, you know, whatever is going on there. And it's just like they literally like can't do much under it. Last 2 spells, just generically Upstart and Call. These are 2 easy drops. You absolutely drop these if you have the cards that I will mention at the end of the main deck that I don't have. But this is just like, I guess, consistency supplements, like because we don't have those extra cards for consistency. This, I guess, can help us beat an Ash if our hand it loses to Ash, which usually they don't. I will say that, but I guess it can. And then Upstart is just draw one. It makes our deck lose even more to Droll, which we do, but most people aren't main decking Droll, they're side decking it. So having it for game 1 is fine, and then we can side it out games 2 and 3 when Droll absolutely is always coming in. Then for the traps, triple ZEFRA War, 1 ZEFRA Divine Strike, and 1 9 Pillars. These are phenomenal cards. The biggest thing is that our Searcher, ZEFRA New, searches on Pendulum Summon, but also searches if he's destroyed by battle or card effects. So you get a search on your turn, and then you use either War or 9 Pillars to pop him while disrupting our opponent on their turn and getting an additional search for either follow-up or another disruption, which is so good. And that's also what makes Gamma even better, is that like we're popping him on our opponent's turn, so we a lot of times just have no monsters anymore after we've already disrupted them, and then still have like Gamma in hand. Crazy. But yeah, these are just Omni Negates. It's important to note this is an Omni Negate and Shuffle, not Destroy. So you out stuff like Dragoon with this completely, very cleanly if you can bait them into using it. But the only problem is you have to search this. So like you are going to give your opponent the heads up on the fact that you do have it. So you just have to really be smart about how you go about that. And then ZEFRA War. This card's cool. It's like Dryden, but it pops a ZEFRA card you control and an opponent's card, and if you have 2 ZEFRA scales on activation, you can actually use it from hand. You don't have to set it, so you can actually use it going second to break through a board a little bit more, or you can like search it on your opponent's turn and still be able to activate it immediately as another disruption, which is always very good. So there's our main deck, 40 cards. The 2 big cards I am missing right now is 1, Pot of Prosperity. I'm sorry, guys. I know this card is like, there's so many decks that you want to play it in, especially rogue decks, and it's so expensive. And if you're a rogue player, a lot of times you are a budget player. I get it. I'm with you. It's just tough, and it's just is the case, and it's a huge consistency boost to this deck because it helps you find ZEFRA, it helps you find your low scale if you don't have it, or it helps you find any other like in-between card, Gammas, other decent hand traps, whatever it may be. But it is definitely a huge boost. The other one is Triple Tactics Talents. This is a very control-y deck where you like to play turn after turn after turn after turn, and even if you opened it and it wasn't live for your first turn, or maybe your second turn, it will be live at one point during the duel. Your opponent will have to activate a monster effect on your field, whether it's a hand trap, whether it's something like just a monster disruption in general, whether it's a negate or anything. But this card is amazing. It'll help you out Dragoon more consistently. It helps you draw cards to play through certain disruptions in a weaker hand. It helps you rip stuff out of your opponent's hand if you still have a strong hand to play through an interruption. And on top of that, just make their hand even worse. It's an insane card, and I highly recommend it because I just feel like in a deck like this where you want to play for like 8 turns, it'll just be crazy because your opponent's going to have to activate monster effects on your turn, and you can just punish them for it. But all right, let's get into the extra deck real quick. Those are the 2 cards I would try and find room for in the deck. Maybe even both as 3 ofs, but maybe like 2 of 2 of or 3 of 2 of. I don't even know entirely what the ratio I would want to play is. Okay, Synchros, Metaphys Horus, Stardust Charge Warrior, Wind Pegasus Ad Ignister, Cyframe Lord Omega, and Ravenous Croco Dragon. Okay, going through these real quick. Metaphys Horus is insane. If you make it with a Pendulum monster and an effect monster, you can negate a face-up card permanently, and your opponent has to give control of one of their monsters to you. They get to choose, but it is like evenly matched. So like even against Ad Ignisters, if they only have the Link 6 on field, even though it's unaffected, they're affecting it, not you. So they have to give you that card, and it just can't attack that turn. It's not even negated or anything. So crazy. Stardust Charge Warrior draws you a card. It works with the field spell combo, which I'll show at the end. I won't show him. I'll show Croco Dragon, though, because he's better for it. Same thing, though. Omega, that's just for Gamma. Punish your opponent if you can resolve it on your turn, which you do all the fucking time. And Wind Pegasus. You can also make 7s in this deck. And so sometimes you make him to, like, pop back row, and then when he ends up in grave, he's, like, a punish if your opponent wants to destroy anything on your field. So it becomes very annoying for people to deal with this deck. And like actually deal with your board. For the Exceeds, 1 Dampier Vampire Sheridan and 1 Sacred Tree Beast Hyperiton. Hyperiton is what you're going off of when you make the rank 9 with the field spell play. I will show you that. And then Sheridan is really, really cool because he pairs with Horus insanely well. So he says if you're using an opponent's owned monster for the Exceed summon of this card, it counts as a level 6. So you use Horus, force your opponent to give you one of their monsters. It counts as a level 6 now, and Horus is level 6, so then you just overlay for him, and then he can detach a material to just targeting send any cards your opponent controls, and if it's a monster, he can just reborn it to your field. So like just by making a Synchro level 6, essentially you're going to get negate a monster, negate a card on field permanently, force your opponent to give you one of their monsters, then use him to send one of their monsters and reborn it to your field. So just by making a Synchro 6, you get like a 2600 beater that's going to have another removal next turn. Oh, actually, no, I think he has to detach again. I can't remember. Yeah, so he won't have any materials, but he'll be 2600 attack. You will have stolen their monster, whatever that is, and it's not even negated. As well as like you would have had removed 2 cards and negated a card on your opponent's field. I just think the value there is like so insane. It's a play people at points have argued about taking out of the deck, but that's a mistake. Okay, so for links, we've got Gravity Controller. This is Pendulum, so Gravity Controller is great. Psi-Formula Lambda makes Gamma, or you can bluff Gamma so that certain like combo decks, just people won't even try to play. They'll like just wait another turn when you don't even have Gamma because you can bluff them. Asa, this is definitely a card that can come out for sure, but half of the ZEFRA package is Earth, so it's nice. You can definitely get some nice link material with that. IP Masquerena, Nightmare Phoenix, and Nightmare Unicorn. Phoenix is just utility, getting rid of back row, but IP into Unicorn. If like you're later in the duel and you don't have access to like your traps anymore, or your opponent like negated, like ashed, you know, ZEFRA Nui or something, you can still, if you just have enough material, make an IP and then IP into Unicorn on your opponent's turn for some disruption. And then just this card's great anyway, just for outing certain things. And then we finish up with these two. Do you need to play these? I know I said this is budget. You do not have to play Access Code in this list. I will say that. If you have Borosword, I think that's fine as far as giving you the ability to like push for game when you have enough material. It's just nice. There are some situations where this is better. There are some situations where this is better. You have them both, play them. If you don't have this, Borosword should be fine. One other card, a couple cards that I think are really cool. I think there's 2 big ones for the extract that I just don't have at the moment. One is the like Nirvana High Paladin. It's like a Synchro, I believe it's a Synchro level 10. This deck can kind of make it in awkward situations, but it's actually like a Pendulum Synchro. It's a weird card, but it's just nice utility to have. It actually comes up in very specific situations, but it can be clutch. And the other one is the Underworld Goddess, the Link 5. Isn't she in Link? Yeah, she's a Link 5, but you can use an opponent's monster, but she requires like 4+ monsters. So if you can put enough monsters on field, you can actually take your opponent's monster to make it essentially what it is another Dragoon out, right? You would have had potentially, if you're not playing with a budget at all, you have Triple Tax, which can out Dragoon. You have Horus, which can out Dragoon. You have that card, which can out Dragoon. And you also have like Access Code. So you have like so many different outs to Dragoon. The worst thing you can do is play a deck like Sub-Terrors and just like not even be able to touch a card like Dragoon like at all, which is just so brutal. But this deck actually has multiple ways to get around it. But yeah, that's gonna do it there. Let me show you the 3-card combo. I'll show you like a simple version, I guess. So the simple version is you need like Oracle, ZEFRA, and ZEFRAXI. So however you get that, whether there's a Providence in here or whatever, you at least need these 3. Actually, let's just throw a Providence in there. That'll just make it slightly better. Oh, whatever. I'll just show Providence at the end. Okay, so long story short, you need to go activate Oracle, okay? Oracle will search you another card, and it can be a low scale. That's all it needs to be. So we'll just grab another ZEFRAXI just for simplistic's sake. Scale ZEFRAXI, scale ZEFRA. ZEFRA's effect will send a ZEFRA New to the top of the extra deck. Just put it right there, just so it's kind of whatever. Then we're going to pen summon, okay? We're going to pen summon both the ZEFRAXI and the ZEFRA New. And this is basically what you need to do, right? The whole goal of this combo, pen summon, ZEFRA New, and ZEFRAXI while Oracle's on the field. That is all you need to worry about doing. So from here, we're going to go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. So ZEFRAXI is going to make ZEFRA New a tuner, and ZEFRA New is going to search us a card. This is why you also don't need Providence, because you can just go Providence, activate Providence here. You always want to go through Providence, by the way. Make sure you're doing that. If you're ever searching off this and you haven't used Providence that turn, go Providence next unless you're scared of Droll, because Providence is just going to be Balinx engraved. So you're just doing the same combo, but just add Balinx to your board. We'll grab 9 pillars. Sometimes you want to grab War, but I'm going to grab 9 pillars in this situation. So then from here, we're going to go these two guys, and they'll go to the extra deck, and we will Synchro into Ravenous Croco Dragon. He needs to be in the extra monster zone, but this will trigger Oracle. But we're going to go Ravenous Croco Dragon Chainlink 1 to draw, and Chainlink 2 Oracle to stack. So we're going to be able to stack any monster from our main deck on top of our deck, and then our Chainlink 2 of Croco Dragon will stack the Gizmek Kaku, and then we'll draw that to hand. And then because we have a monster in the extra monster zone, we can just summon this for free, and then we can overlay for our boy, Hyperiton. So he is a monster negate right now. If you had any other spell to activate, which I guess would be weird, but I guess if you did, you could potentially try to attach Providence, but I don't think that's very good. I want that engraved to protect. So for now, it's just going to be a monster negate, which is still very good. And we have 9 pillars, which keep in mind, oh wait, hold on. Never mind, I didn't mean grab 9 pillars. That was a mistake. My fault, not 9 pillars. If you can keep ZEFRA still on board, like maybe you pen summon 2 ZEFRA, then it's good. But we're going to get Divine Strike here. And also don't forget Zefraxi goes to the bottom of the deck after he uses his effect to make something a tuner and then leaves the field. So yeah, we'll have an Omni Negate with Divine Strike and a monster negate off of Hyperiton and protection for the board with Providence, as well as just the follow-up of Zefrathin Scale, Oracle getting us more stacks and stuff, and you know, Scale's already established. We're just going to be able to continue to churn out more Pendulum monsters as the turns go on. And this is just a 2-card combo, or 3-card combo, sorry. So whatever other 2 cards in your hand just go to make your board that much better, whether it's more disruptions via hand traps or whatever, or whether there was just, maybe you drew Path, maybe you hard drew something else, maybe you hard drew Providence as well with that hand, and you just get the Providence for Path, and you end on Divine Strike, Path, Hyperiton, which is insane. Just make sure you activate Path before you Synchro into Ravenous Croco Dragon, because Path does shuffle any non-ZEFRAs on activation back into the deck. So you don't want to do that. But that's basically it. Obviously, the combo will slightly change depending on what exact pieces you have in the hand, but you just want to remember like the core principles of stuff like always search, like Providence first if you haven't used Providence yet that turn, because you want to get it engraved unless you're scared of draw, as well as like chain blocking ZEFRA and just making sure you're just pendulum summoning ZEFRA and Zefraxi while Oracle is on the field. That's all you need to do. But yeah, that's going to do it for the deck profile, guys. Hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully you take a look at this deck. If you're not a budget player and you want to play something cool, this is a deck that straight up like dunks on so many different decks. I highly implore you to try it out, especially if you have access to the cards I mentioned that I don't currently have access to. I highly implore you to check it out. And even not, it's still a pretty good budget deck. You just sometimes open wonky hands with too many hand traps called by the grave, and you just don't have enough ZEFRA cards to really do what you want to do. So that's why those other cards are so good. It's because they can be ZEFRA cards or they can be defensive cards. So that is summing it up for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe if you want to see more stuff from your boy. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.